needing the structure and modeling somebody's setup and systems that has already proven that success. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. And once I figured that out, it made it a whole lot easier because I could take somebody who was, 10 years ahead of me and just model that system, do what they're doing, and they had already proven the concept.
Welcome, everyone, to the Road Less Traveled podcast. This podcast is about people that were successful in a previous career and have now left that career to choose to go down a different path. I'm your co-host, Richard Coyne.
And I'm your co-host, Bill Zahller. And today we have a special guest, Seth Ferguson. Seth is a founder of real estate investment company, Multifamily Real Estate Investments, Inc. Provides opportunities to high net worth individuals by acquiring and improving underperforming apartment buildings. A 13-year real estate veteran, Seth is host of the cable TV show, Real Estate Show, host of Real Estate Investing Podcast, and his first book, Sell for More, published in 2018. Interesting facts. Seth is a former professional and junior hockey referee, plays the bagpipes, and is a huge history nerd. Welcome, Seth.
Hey, thanks for having me. I sound like the most uncool person ever after that.
That's well-rounded, I think.
That's right. That's right. Well, other than the intro there, tell us a little bit about yourself. What your former career was. We touched on the professional referee, and then how you got into what you're on now.
Yeah. So, like you said, I was involved heavily into hockey for over a decade. And that saw me working in a whole bunch of different junior and professional hockey leagues. And then I transitioned from that into selling residential properties. And that was my first foray into real estate. And then I moved over to investing. So it feels like I've been a bit of a suitcase when it comes to career choices, but all have been good. All have been good. And there's some good stories.
Absolutely. And then what path have you pivoted from the hockey side to the real estate side? What path are you pursuing now?
Yeah, so right now, really heavily involved in the multifamily real estate space, both in Canada and the United States. If my Canadian accent doesn't give me away, so I'm just outside of Toronto. And then also I run a pretty large real estate conference called the Multifamily Conference as well. That's held in Toronto.
Nice, very nice. Yeah. Seth, you mentioned some stories. So do you have a funny story, perhaps maybe from your early career?
Oh, from the hockey ball. I'll have to pick one that I'm allowed to tell.
Okay.
That's a PG version. No, it was, as a young single guy, working in hockey is a great thing to do. I got to travel all over the United States and Canada. When I was down in the States, it was basically my full-time job. I was paid to work out, referee hockey, and travel the country. So I don't think you can get something better than that. You're in different cities every night. It's almost like being a pilot, almost. And you're living out of a suitcase, working some good hockey. My NHL dream that I was gunning for did not happen. But there were a whole bunch of people that I worked with on the ice. I flip on the TV now. I see them, and we had some good times. So that was a long way of answering your story question. Mm-hmm. And in terms of stories, so many. Tornado in Topeka, Kansas. That was pretty cool. We were running from the car with our bags over our heads with like the hail and the softball size, sleet coming down. What kind of story do you want to hear? Because I've got so many.
Oh, I don't know. Just something humorous. Did you ever kind of experience something where you're like, why am I doing this? This is just nuts. Why am I doing this? This is crazy.
Well, I would say when you're driving at 3:00 in the morning, you question why you're doing it. Mm-hmm. But then, I think, for me, that's one of the reasons why I retired and became washed up is it wasn't the games. I really enjoyed working the hockey. I enjoyed the group of guys. I enjoyed the competitive nature of it, the pressure, but it was just the travel. When my son came along, so my son is now 4, it just wasn't, you're driving home at 1-2 o'clock in the morning. It's like, I would rather be at home with him, and then you're tired the next morning, and with a baby, it doesn't really work out too well. So yeah, the travel was pretty tough towards the end, but when you're 20, 21, it's an exotic kind of lifestyle, but
Sure.
it kind of wears you down.
Yeah. Certainly, definitely. A lot of people think travel is all glamorous and everything, and it gets old after a while. You do it for a number of years, it gets old. Yeah.
Yeah, you work the hockey game, you hop in the car, you drive for 2.5 hours, get the hotel, you wake up, you drive some more, do the next hockey game. So yeah.
Well, we touched on some of, I guess the travel was one of the factors, but was there any deciding definite factor that transitioned you from, okay, I want to get out of this and pivot toward real estate?
Yeah, for sure. So after my season in the US working a bunch of different leagues, I saw that there were guys working that hockey that were, in their mid 30s, and they were still pursuing the dream, and the window had closed for them years before, and they were still going for it. So I thought to myself, okay, I need a real job here, because, even though I was considered a professional hockey referee, the big paychecks don't come until you make the National Hockey League, or you get a job and go to Europe and work some of their tier 1 leagues over there. So I needed a job. And then when I came back to Ontario in Canada, my father had just purchased a real estate brokerage. He was making a transition from owning a printing business to, he wanted to own a real estate brokerage. So I thought, okay. In my head, I thought that real estate agents set their own hours and it was really flexible. And then, so I was thinking to myself, well, I can still do hockey and then sell houses, and everything will work seamlessly, and everything will be perfect. So that's how I got into it. And then pretty quickly, I realized that was not the case. And selling houses is a full-time job and a half. And, hockey takes place evenings and weekends. Selling houses takes place evenings and weekends. But, it was what it was.
Yeah. So Seth, were there any obstacles that really, again, once you committed, listen, I am driving in this real estate direction, I'm going to take that path. Were there any obstacles you really hit that just kind of slowed you down a little bit?
Yeah, I think a number of things slow people down when they're getting into real estate from a sales perspective. Number one is the lack of direction. A lot of people have the misconception that sales leads will find them, and that they work really hard and they care about the client, so people will flock to them. That's not the way it works, and it's a pretty rude awakening to a lot of brand new salespeople, and that's why about 90% won't be around in 3 to 5 years. And then also, so needing the structure and modeling somebody's setup and systems that has already proven that success. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. And once I figured that out, it made it a whole lot easier, because I could take somebody who was, 10 years ahead of me and just model that system, do what they're doing. And they had already proven the concept. What I see is a lot of new people entering that industry. And I'm sure it's the same with every industry. They think they have the next bright idea. And even though innovation is good, you should innovate the proven model, not come up with something totally from scratch that will likely fail. So I think that's number one. And then I think for me as well, my own head got in the way, because I was still a young guy in my 20s, and I was still pushing the hockey dream as far as I could. So I don't think I totally gave up the hockey dream until my later 20s. And then that's when I really got serious into real estate.
There's you mentioned there's a phrase that says I learn from your mistakes, and I like to say learn from other people's mistakes. So that kind of echoes that sort of follow a proven model rather than trying to reinvent the wheel constantly. So yeah
100%.
Well, in your journey, Seth, what was your first victory you can remember, like a large victory on the real estate path?
On the sales side, I would say it's everybody remembers getting their first listing. That's really exciting as a residential real estate agent. That was a pretty big victory. And I would say buying my first investment property was another one. And that came about, I was making what a lot of people would consider really good money on the sales side. But I was a young guy, so I had the nice car. I had a 4-bedroom house, and it was just me with the pool. And so it was almost like all my commissions came in, but then it was going out at the same rate. Mm-hmm. And I realized that, I wasn't really building anything. Sure, I had this, I was making a lot, but I was also spending a lot at the same time. So that's when, my brain started thinking about acquiring more real estate. I knew the product like the back of my hand because I was selling it on a day-to-day basis. So getting into the residential real estate investing side was my first foray into that. And then we had some bumps along the road with that, and everything exploded. But that's a story for later on, I think.
What about that first investment property? Can you tell us about that? The first investment deal?
Yeah. So it was my partner at the time and we converted a bungalow. It was like a typical 50s bungalow, converted that into a duplex. So you have the basement unit in the bottom, you have the upstairs unit. And, Toronto was a pretty major real estate market. The rental yield is quite poor, especially when it comes to residential property. So you've got high growth, but low cash flow. So adding that accessory unit was a big deal because it freed, it took a property from being negatively geared towards something more cash flow positive. So, and that property allowed us to refinance after that was done, acquire another one. And you can kind of, make the snowball bigger and bigger as you go on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, a lot of times, finding that, closet that you can expand into and get a second half bath or something like that in a house, or looking at an apartment complex and trying to figure out, okay, do I really need this particular, storage building is just too big. Could I, perhaps make that into some additional apartment units and bring some more revenue in the building, along the books. And looking for those opportunities is a great way to do it. Yeah,
for sure. I just wish I knew about the commercial multifamily side when I first started, but that was totally foreign to me. And like so many people, like you guys know, people think you have to be ultra rich to invest in apartment buildings. You have to have some magical skills to make it happen, which is simply not the case. But it was like commercial real estate was on Mars for me. And that's why, with your podcast and the stuff I'm doing, it's just about spreading the message. And because if I could hop in a time machine and sit down with my younger self, I would have started on the commercial side right away.
Yeah. Yeah. You're exactly right. I mean, you certainly don't have to have, I can't do a 20 until I do a duplex. I can't do a 30 until I do a quad. You certainly can, figure out what's the right path for you. And my first investment property was a single family, and then I, partnered up with Bill, and we went and bought a large apartment building. It was awesome. Yeah. Yeah. So along the way of what you're doing in terms of both, you residential and or some of the larger buildings, do you have any humorous story there? Anything that's been funny that you encountered along the way?
There's I would say the most humorous story I have now is probably how the residential portfolio collapsed upon itself. So like I mentioned, my romantic partner at the time and we were acquiring these properties, and a switch was flipped in her brain, and everything hit the fan, so to speak. So the bank accounts got emptied. She took all the money out. And then we had vacancies in some of the rental properties, but we were both on title, so we both needed to sign the lease. So all the money was gone from the bank. We had properties without tenants in it. She was refusing to put new tenants in it. Then we had mortgages starting to bounce because we didn't have the cash flow coming in. And then probably the icing on the cake was I went to the gym one morning. This was after she changed the locks on the house and put my clothes in a storage unit filled with garbage. But so I was in the gym, and then I walk outside of the gym and the car's gone. So luckily, we had surveillance footage and we saw what happened, but it was basically like in, a very short period of time, I went from living in this nice house that was renovated at the time, with all these properties. And then I basically had zero, but wow. I laugh about it now, and the situation is pretty ridiculous. At the time, I was crying a bit, but now when you think about it, it's just it's so ridiculous. You have to laugh. But that happening was the catalyst for, starting my podcast, getting my TV show, the multifamily conference we're running now, the YouTube channel. And it's funny because when you first start doing things, you don't realize how they connect with a dot further along in the future. So, the people I met through my podcast have turned into speakers for the conference. But when I started the podcast 3 years ago, I had no idea that would happen. But now I have an all-star lineup of speakers because I did the podcast. So everything kind of fits together somehow. You just don't realize it when you get started.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I certainly have, you could take any point in time and look back and go, oh, am I going to be upset about something that happened in the past? No, absolutely not. It may be who I am today. And who I am today is I feel good about that. So, yeah.
And starting at ground zero is a good basis for growth. I mean, you can only go up.
100% improvement in 1 year. Yeah.
May the returns look great from that point forward.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Where are you today on your journey as you've got, like I said, the conference rolling out, you're doing syndications, TV shows, just where are you at and where are your goals for the future going forward with this path?
Yeah, well, in an ideal world, I would be looking at properties in the United States right now, but coronavirus has thrown a wrench in that. As much as I hate talking about coronavirus, I'm so sick and tired of it. Plus, I need a haircut. But where we are right now, it's all about, for me, it's all about sharing the message of what commercial real estate can do for people. And I really take the approach that, if I could talk with myself, back when I first started getting interested in investing, what would I tell myself? And those are the types of messages I'm trying to share with people because, you guys have the same thing most likely when you sit down with a very successful business owner who's interested in investing, but they have no idea about the opportunity real estate provides. They don't know about the tax benefits. They don't know about how things are structured. And so they're very successful in what they do day to day. But it's real estate opens up a whole new world. And I think more people have to know about it. So that is focus number one, is getting the message out there and just helping people, visualize, what their lives can look like with real estate and the impact it can have on their lifestyle.
Yeah.
So where does your road take you from here? Where do you see yourself going?
Yeah, well, next step for me is having the conference actually take place. So that's May 14th and 15th next year, 2022. And that's in Toronto. But we've got Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank as the keynote speaker. So that's pretty cool to have Mr. Wonderful. So we would like to ramp that up. Obviously, we have to have the first successful event, but I'd like to make that an annual thing and just keep building. Because the more people we can get into that environment where you can think bigger, and when I was talking about the horrible situation that happened, that forced me to expand my thinking and think bigger. I think that's probably the most powerful thing somebody can do, is just expand their mindset, and just putting yourself in a room with, let's say, 2,000 other people thinking the same way, with all these speakers who have shown what can happen if you think bigger. I think that can be really powerful. So the more people we get involved with that, the better. And just, working on the TV show, that's a whole lot of fun. And in the podcast, we're at, over 300 interviews now for sure.
Yeah. True. Like you said, the group of people doing exciting and interesting, motivating things, I think is huge to be around. We were always talking about, I think Jim Rohn was the one with a quote about, the average of your 5 friends, so it's not just that they're doing that, just it helps you think at a higher level and it motivates you, and just you're aware of more opportunities going forward. I think it's critical. I think it's great what you're doing on the program there.
Yeah. And it's not, I'm the first person to kind of gag when I hear all these motivational quotes. So that's not me, but it's more like, when I go to an event or something, like I can remember the moment I realized I needed to do the conference was I was in a mastermind type of group, and we were talking about partnerships and how one person can have an exponential impact on somebody else. Everything else that we talked about in that mastermind is irrelevant because it gave me the idea for the conference. So it's just finding that one idea in everything you're doing. And I think that can have a huge impact, not to get all kind of hokey about it, but I think it's so true.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, what's something you've recently implemented in your business that's helped you achieve your goals, move further?
Yeah. So like a lot of entrepreneurs, I suffered from trying to do everything on my own. And, it's, when you have an A-type personality, you want to control everything and do everything right. Letting go and letting other people flourish has been really impactful. So hiring like your first assistant is a big deal. Outsourcing, talking about the conference, outsourcing conference planning, that has such a freeing effect. And the E-Myth by Michael Gerber, that's an old book now, but it's still very relevant. We don't want to be an operator. We have to be working on the business. So I think that has probably been the most impactful thing that I've taken to heart recently.
Right.
Fantastic. That's great.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what advice would you give to somebody who's contemplating, making a change in the path that they're on right now?
Yeah, it's it's not as bad as you think. I think fortunately in retrospect, I was forced to make the changes because of what happened. I basically started from ground zero, so that was forced upon me. Would I have had the guts to quit cold turkey and do that on my own? Probably not, but I'm a whole lot better for it. So I think if somebody's on the fence, what's the worst? I think about what's the best possible outcome and the worst possible outcome. Oftentimes, not taking action and making the switch almost guarantees the worst possible outcome without even giving yourself a fighting chance at the best possible. So, just believe in yourself. And that's so cliche. I can't believe I said that. but you have to have confidence in your own scrappy ability to really claw back and do it. Because I'm so much more fulfilled now with what I'm doing than even 5 years ago when I had all the fancy stuff back then.
It's excellent.
Yeah, it's amazing. Just you got to take action. You got to jump in. We meet a number of people who want to be educated about what they're going into, which I fully support. And I don't jump into something that I don't learn about first. But at the same point in time, you got to take action. And like you said, what's the worst that can happen? Make a mistake, learn from it, go forward. Carry on.
Yeah. And sometimes knowing too much will hold you back because you know what's waiting for you. So, you almost have to go in a little bit blind. So that way all the bumps and surprises don't stop you from doing it in the first place.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah. You don't know what you don't know until you get into it.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, Seth, Seth has been great having you on. What's the best way for people to reach you? And like I said, let them know about your conference, your podcast.
Yeah, for sure. So the website for the conference, which is www.multifamilyconference.ca. So we have investors coming from all over the United States and Canada to Toronto. So it's going to be great. You can also find me on YouTube, youtube.com/Seth Ferguson. Podcast is Real Wealth Through Real Estate Podcast, and then sethferguson.org for everything in between.
Absolutely. Great. Well, and we'll put links to the show notes, all those addresses below, so people can find you easily. But Seth, I want to thank you for being on the Road Less Traveled podcast. I really enjoyed the discussion and wish you continued success.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely. Been a pleasure.
Absolutely. We'd also like to thank our audience. We appreciate you listening and tuning in. And again, we certainly also want to thank our sponsors. Remember, the road less traveled may be calling you. We recommend that you listen and take action. Thanks for joining us, Seth.